Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's Tech Talk time, the weekly slash bi-weekly slash when I have time podcast, because this has obviously been a very busy festive period when it comes to War Thunder. It's been a bit nuts at the end of the day. So we're doing one for Christmas. We're going to be grinding the kind of event and also just wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, pretty much. Nice to see you, Matrix and Kiss Chat. Merry Christmas. We're recording this on Christmas Eve, but you guys will see it. Sign in to confirm your age? What? Wait, why has this just changed? All right, hello everyone. There we go. I'm back again. So, basically, yeah, we're going to be just kind of grinding the event and then also going through the comments on the last Tech Talk. If you have anything that you want kind of going through, obviously stick it in the Tech Talk comments, or we do live stream it when it comes to when it comes to YouTube and Twitch. So if you want to check it out there, you can as well. Hey Blister, nice to see you. In Iranian folklore, Santa is called Daddy Noel. Goddamn, Daddy's coming tonight. That has different connotations. So yeah, been a busy few weeks. A lot going on in good old War Thunder, but also everything else. Like it's been a bit wild, and I'm glad that we're through it, if I'm honest. For me, this part of the year, like September to December, is like the craziest, not just from like, War Thunder stuff or online stuff, but also like my actual work stuff like ramps up all the way through the year. And then there's kind of like a cataclysm slash, just everything exploding in November, December. And then it kind of chills again in January, and then it ramps again, usually March onwards. So this time of year is just insanely busy for me. But we're through it. We're good. We get to enjoy Christmas, and then I'll be off basically mid-January, which will be like my chill time. So yeah, there's some stuff that I'm going to change in terms of like content and things like that, but we'll talk about that later on when the new year starts. The major thing, and nothing massive is changing. We're still going to stream, we're still going to do YouTube, still going to do everything. It's just the way that I do certain things may change slightly just because of what's, time efficient and all of that good stuff. So let's get started at looking at the comments and then going through it. If any of you guys have any questions as we go along, make sure to stick them in as well so we can go through it. Nice to see you, Diaboli. Merry Christmas Eve. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything is all right. Thank you for the gifted sub-chieftain, Mike. It's very kind of you. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I'm going to be giving out a bunch of games. We are going to be streaming on Christmas, by the way. Christmas morning, specifically. And I'll have a bunch of games to give away for people. Just to say thank you and also, just spread some Christmas cheer. Good morning, Tiger Hunter. Nice to see you, Anti-Griefer. Hopefully you're doing well. And also, thank you to Juan. Juan for doing the timestamps once again. Very kind of him as always to do that. We're going to be actually playing some stuff with Juan, I think, in the new year. Maybe some Warno and also some other co-op games, so it should be quite fun. Freeman is a good friend, and he's been a good friend for a long time. But Freeman has been sent to India to find a wife. And Freeman being Freeman, we don't know how long that's going to take. So while Freeman is going into his next stage of adulthood, we might have to take a pause on the co-op stuff and then see where we can get it in other areas. So it should be quite fun. Hey, Silver Serpent, nice to see you. Merry Christmas, brother. Hopefully you have a good one. Nice to see you too, Effendi. So yeah, we'll be doing some other stuff in terms of that, whether it's things like playing some Borderlands or playing some Warner with Alex and Juan and others. We shall see what's going on. Update on Freeman. He's still alive, which is positive. He said that he thinks he's going to be back in... He thinks he's going to be back in where he's from, like the Philippines, in the end of January, which is when his birthday is. But it's not really up to him, it's up to his parents, right? But he has been told he has to find a wife, and therefore by the time he leaves India, he has to at least have a kind of marriage proposal done and all that general stuff. So we'll have to see how it goes. He's got a month to do it. We really should have made it into a reality TV show. It would have been absolutely fantastic to see. But c'est la vie. That isn't the case. With a wife? No, I think he just needs a proposal and an engagement by the time he goes back, and then he'll get married next year. That's what he said. But he has been hitting the gym, or at least he's been telling his auntie he's hitting the gym. He's actually been faking it by driving to the gym and not going in. But, you know, that's progress. He has had some stomach issues, but they are getting better. And generally, he's just enjoying time with the fam. And I think his family as well. So he's never coming home. Have a little faith in our boy. Have a little faith, you know? Have a little faith. Needs a matchmaker. He's already found one, and the matchmaker found 6 eligible women. So we'll see how that goes. He's been hitting the gin. I don't think he's been drinking, which is positive. But we'll see. Is he still allergic to perfume? Yeah, Freeman's still allergic. Well, he's allergic to a lot of things, it seems. He's allergic to anything he doesn't like, which I think is how this works. But yeah, we'll talk about it a bit later. Oh, Jesus. So yeah, that's the Freeman news in terms of what's been going on. And then let's try and get this thing down on the... Oh, no. Oh! I may have broken this. Hey, Naruto champ, nice to see you. But yeah, so look forward to a lot of co-op stuff in the new year. And also a bunch of other stuff that's going to be going on. It's going to be really fun. Just like, you know, the more recent stuff has been pretty fun to do. This will be the same. It'll be great. Get him on Tinder. I don't know what Indian Tinder looks like. But there's a bunch of rules and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. So then we have Joven. A bad week to be alive. No week is a bad week to be alive. Like, at the end of the day, it is nice to be alive. It is good to be alive. It's generally something that, at least for me, I enjoy doing. I really am one of those people who, you know, believes without life there isn't really anything. So it's always good to at least try and prosper in whatever you do. Quite nice. I think Freeman should put the marriage candidates up on a Twitch poll, use channel points to vote for his wife. He could definitely do that. One of the things that he did also mention was one of the front runners, her parents died in prison. So, you know, it happens to the best of us, I think is the way to put it. But yeah, so we'll see what goes on. He's also laid out his terms of what he wants, and we'll see what goes from there. Hey, Hayden, nice to see you. But no. It's always a good time to be alive, no matter the circumstances. So we have Toshio. Positivity time. What are some good memories you have from naval development? I remember when it was SPA on water, and currently naval has by far the most detailed and impressive models in the game. I've been enjoying nimble destroyers and playing battleships like a lunatic lately. So for me, I really enjoyed the initial video that they did, and also the initial premise of naval. I honestly thought the idea of like coastal ships was pretty cool, because there's a bunch of other games out there that do like the large ships, but there's not really any games that do like the small ships, right? And the cool thing I thought, because if you have a look at like early Q&As and early like videos like Gaijin did, one of the things that they strongly emphasize is the idea that they wanted War Thunder to be everything together, right? Which I think is pretty cool and an interesting idea. The problem with this is once you start adding in the larger machines, you can't have that. Like, fundamentally, you cannot put a tank on the same battlefield as a destroyer, right? It's just not going to work. Because the tank can't kill the destroyer can kill the tank, right? It's just like the whole plane thing again. But with the coastal setup, you had this situation that maybe it could have worked, right? It could have worked in a pretty positive way, but then they decided to add the larger stuff in. I think it was really cool when they actually showed the first destroyers off, which was, you know, the tribal classes and stuff like that. I thought there was a lot of hype around that, which was pretty interesting. And also to see the developments they've done in general for naval, to do with like the aiming and also the float plane usage, and also just trying to add in stuff which makes naval work in terms of a game mode instead of just like a shooty bang bang. I think has been pretty interesting. There was also the season 2 of World War mode where they added in naval elements. I thought generally that was actually quite fun. It was something which I would say I had a personally quite good time with. Just because, you know, that season I felt like was the most balanced out of the 3 when it came to World War mode, and also like other areas of the game. And that, you know, made me really happy to play that season with the squad. It was super fun and enjoyable to play that one. But unfortunately, after that, it kind of went a bit crazy. But the models in War Thunder for Naval are insane. You know, the actual just general relaxing playstyle of it is also really fun. Like, I'm super glad that they actually added naval, because they could have also just never added it, right? Like, they could have just kept with the air and ground stuff. But I honestly think naval fills a niche for me that wasn't found in any other naval game. And the fact that the gameplay is different to a lot of other naval games. Like, one of the things that happens a lot in terms of like talking about naval is a lot of people compare it to other games, like, oh well, you know, I want more of like a Silent Waters feel, or I want more of the realistic feel, or I want, you know, more like arcadey stuff for World of Warships has, where it has like just weird mechanics for like each thing. But the thing that War Thunder has always done really well, and will continue to do well, is it bridges the gap between like the simulation idea and the arcade idea. That's why War Thunder is so successful, and that's exactly what they did with naval. They were able to make naval realistic, where it's interesting from a point of these ships, and also interesting from a point of how everything plays and the matchups that you have, but also make it accessible to people in a much better way than a lot of other single-player naval games do, because you could never make the multiplayer, right? Merry Christmas, Grumpy, nice to see you. The MiG-23ML Premium, after the radar nerf, it's a bit harder to play, but it should be fine. Hey, Ned Thomas, nice to see you, Merry Christmas. But yeah, so I think that's really cool. I also like the aiming system. I think it's super intuitive and simple. Which is something that I think is really important. And also, there is a skill to it, which you don't find in anywhere else in kind of War Thunder itself, which I think is quite fun. So for me, I think naval fills a niche, and it always has. And the only issue with it really right now is that whole kind of like coastal blue water hole, which is like 3.0 to 4.0, which they probably need to have a bit of a look at, which is a bit sad. But yeah, it's a good little thing. I'm glad that they put so much time into it, even if the rewards weren't the same as many others. So, let's see. We have Bobby X. Hey Tech, I watched my YouTube yearly gaming recap, and as of any gaming vids I've watched this year, you were #1 gaming channel for me, 2 was Spookston, and 3 was Oddboss. I was the top 2%. That's pretty fun. I don't know if I've got my recap. I haven't checked it. I'm guessing you can. But usually on YouTube, I don't actually watch a lot of gaming stuff. Like, if I do, it's usually like, you know, discussion videos about old games. Like, I really enjoy like Matthew Matosis, for example. Who's a guy who's done a lot of like video essays about, you know, different games like the BioShock series and things like, you know, the Dark Souls series and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really watch a lot of War Thunder stuff, which is kind of funny, right? Because obviously, you know, I make a lot of War Thunder content, but it's, I see it as the reason I don't like watching it is because I always just kind of play it anyway if I want to. So yeah, it's kind of funny how that all works. But yeah, I'm glad that people have enjoyed doing stuff this year. I've really enjoyed making stuff this year, and I look forward to the next year, because next year you know, we're going to do a lot of similar stuff to what we've done this year. But as I said, shifting up a few things a little bit, like when it comes to having a bit more organization in terms of kind of like grinding and the streaming stuff. Because this year, that's the bit that's been a little bit more haphazard. But I'm going to have to check my own one. Where can you actually see this stuff? Like YouTube recap? Is it like on the channel itself? Let's see. Or you can you can find it on Android. We need a January naval update. They did last January. They did rank 6 naval. Oh no, we're not going to. Nice to see you, AK Shafi. Let's see. On the top left, there's a compass. Let's see. I think you can do it on your phone. I know it's find out on mobile. Well, how do you find out on mobile? Because I have my mobile up. So I can have a look. Right. Let's see. Then we have Logger Mandan. One of my cousins is a logger. And also, as a little bit of a tidbit, he can't read. Kind of fun. We'll go into that story at some point. But yeah, there's a set of schools in New Zealand and also other places that follow a specific Austrian philosopher's ideals. Not the one you're thinking of, a different one. But the ideals are around only teaching kids what they want to learn. So kind of pushing forward their like attributes that they're interested in. The problem is it completely forgets about the whole foundational stuff. So yeah, you have you have an interesting little thing there, don't you? Profile. Where do I find the profile button? The U thing at the bottom, I'm guessing. But yeah, so would it be in time watched? No. Bottom right? Yeah, so bottom right, I hit the button, and then Twitch recap. But where is the Twitch recap button? I have no idea. I'll have to find it. Alright, let's go forward. Just jump back into 12-0 Germany ground to see how things are going. Got really cool airshow watching F-15s just out run or dodge my sackless missiles. So awesome. Going with something positive. If anyone is looking to have a little bit of fun, pick up the IS-6. I just did, and it has been a great time grinding Russia. Happy holidays, Tech. Happy holidays to you, Loggerman. But yeah, when it comes to the IS-6, it's still very powerful. It also has just a really nice lineup around it, which is something you don't see with a lot of other things. So that's, you know, something to enjoy is probably the way to put it. Ooh, it's a jail one. But yeah, the major, I mean, BUD talks about it, right? Like, it's been apparent for basically a year now, but I think it's fair to say the thing is out of the jar. I don't even know what the thing is. The ghost is out of the jar. The cookies are out of the jar. Well, something's out of the jar, but it's very obvious there's a big imbalance between different things, right? And it's just made certain areas of the game not even worth playing. So that's something which for me, oh, there's an A10. That's something which for me is just not really worth even going into anymore. But we'll talk about it like in the new year and what they can do. But the important thing to do is not just to keep adding power on top of power on top of power. Like, it just doesn't work. So we'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully, they think about new ways of doing it. I think, at least for me, that would be the most important, but who knows? Like, they're one of those... They've been doing basically the same thing for the longest time in terms of War Thunder, so I don't think it's going to change that much. Like, we're just going to get to a point where they're just not going to be able to add more stuff, and then that'll be interesting to see what goes on, right? So like that is the bit that's pretty nuts, and I wonder what they're gonna do. So check back in like 2, 3, 4 years, and we'll see where we're at that point. So we have Kirsten Collins. Let's see what Kirsten says. Why am I seeing that the Eiffel Tower is on fire? Where's that on French mod we have? Wait, what? The Eiffel Tower's on fire? I suppose they did just rebuild Notre Dame, so it's time to set another landmark on fire. I think that's how it works, right? So Kirsten says, I'm really hoping the leaker who had been leaking the content for the last few major updates gets caught by Gaijin. Gaijin's trailers team has done an exceptional job at creating cinematics for the major updates, but when you know the majority of big vehicles coming a few weeks before the trailer drops, it really detracts from the shock and awe that I used to feel when new vehicles and mechanics were revealed with the major update trailers. Maybe this is just me being pedantic. I know some people quite like knowing what's coming before it is revealed, but I personally am not a fan. Must also suck as part of Gaijin's promotional team when they are creating trailers for vehicles and features that everyone and their twice removed cousin has already heard about. Yeah, I mean, but also it can be seen as part of their marketing, right? So this is the huge funny conspiracy, right? So imagine you have this setup, right? So you have this whole marketing budget, you know, but you also have this like basically huge team of like CCs that can spread information, which is the whole point of like a program. So, you know, you can disseminate information about certain things. And at the same time, the leaking stuff costs absolutely $0 for them. Right? So you could technically market it as much as you want and as much as you have fun with, but nothing is going to beat free advertisement, which is what the content side of things is for Gaijin. Even if like people request a bunch of stuff, technically it's not money that they're spending on the thing, right? So I don't think like Gaijin, I know, was it like it was who's the Australian YouTuber? Not Mags, the other one. God, I've completely forgotten his name. I feel really bad actually that I've forgotten his name. We just haven't talked about him for a few years. But I remember he made a video, was it like last year or a year before, where he was talking about how like Ash, yeah, there you go, Ash. He was talking about like Gaijin had talked to him about somebody like leaking stuff from the like CC stuff because they thought it was from that like time zone, and I think he got a bit offended by that, which I think is fair because it is kind of offensive. But at the same time, it kind of showed that they were at least trying to do something about it. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but usually these things aren't publicized because why would they be? I have personally been told in the past they don't mind people covering the leak stuff. Like they don't control what people make. There are basically like two things with like the CC program. First one is don't lie about things, which I think is like a completely fair thing to say. And the other one is like one of the issues that they see or have is they're worried about people getting targeted for specific things said. So, for example, there was a video that I made which was talking about the BVVD leaks, which were the ones where obviously Chabby, I think, had posted them, or the Chinese GigaChad had posted them. But these were like future content leaks from earlier this year. And it was talking about a bunch of trees that were coming in, a bunch of like different nations that were being worked on, and the idea was that this was from BVVD. Now I called the video something like BVVD leaks, and Gaijin contacted me about it and asked me if I could change it because obviously it kind of sounds like I'm saying BVVD said these things. But the reason why his name was in the title wasn't because of that. It was because we also discussed the Chinese Q&A video that he did and is on a live stream of him doing, where he also talked about these things. So, but they don't want people to basically be targeted for these things because obviously it's talking about private information and public information, right? And I think that's a completely fair thing. Like, I don't see like any issues with that. But from like a content point of view, like Gaijin has never told me what to make or what not to make. And I think that's generally pretty good. They're very hands-off, maybe a bit too hands-off when it comes to certain things, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. But the major thing about this is, as I said, technically it's free advertising for them, and I also would like it to stop. Even though I'm somebody who like makes the videos, talks about these vehicles, go through them, and the reason I do this is basically because if I don't make the videos, people ask me constantly, why have I not made the videos? Or at the same time, they ask me about the videos and tell me, or sorry, about the leaks and tell me what's in them anyway, so I might as well, at this point, like, make them. And also I made a promise a few years ago when people really pissed me off when it came to like how all of this stuff was set up and they just kept badgering me about this stuff. I was like, fine, I'll just cover everything. I'll just do all of that, which is what I do now, right? Because it's just it's easier for me to do that instead of deal with the other side of things, which is the why aren't you touching this kind of thing? Like, why are you simping for whatever like, you know, company or whatever person and all that. So I thought, screw it, I'll just do all of this stuff, right? So then like when it came to all of this stuff, I would like, you know, it to stop too, because I am in the same boat as a lot of people. I don't pay attention to like private stuff or to any of that. I hardly even look at like the CC stuff unless I like get notified by something. And it's because of the fact I like to also have a bit of a I want to have a bit of shock. I want to have a bit of joy on what I'm seeing, which is why for me one of the most interesting things is the stuff that they show on the teaser streams or even in the dev server. When you have a look in the files and see there's some new stuff there that hasn't been talked about. I wish that feeling was the same feeling that I had for every update cycle. But because of the leaks, I don't. And I'm sure a lot of people don't as well. And it does shift the conversation. It also, the other thing that happens, which is now happening, which has happened the last few updates, is people, because of the leaks, expect everything to come now. So what happens is people start going, well, where's this thing? We were told this thing is coming. And, you know, it should definitely come. And it's like, no, that's not how any of this works. So you get constant questions about things that we haven't seen yet, that we should have seen, instead of talking about the stuff that is there. And that sucks, because we just keep talking about the future stuff instead of the things that we should be enjoying in the moment. Every update cycle is now not talking about the update cycle, it's talking about what the next update cycle can bring to deal with that update cycle. It's wild. Like, it's very odd to be part of. So hopefully next year it'll be a little bit different. I hope a bit more surprise, a bit more intrigue turns up, a bit more fun in the setup, but I guess it probably won't. Because, as I said, this isn't negative for any parties apart from the people like Kirsten, like me, who get burnt out on this stuff. Because you don't actually talk about the game, you just talk about whatever future thing is turning up. So yeah. What about the CC drama from the player revolt? And the one that kept stirring and leading the hate still being a CC? I mean, they can't stop people. As I said, like, when it comes to Gaijin, their position is to give you tools in order to make videos. They are apolitical. They are straight up, don't want to get, like, their hands on anything because they don't want to be seen to control anything. Because in the past, there was a guy at Gaijin called Pavel who decided to try and do this with Alkanafta. And we've talked about this in the past. Hey Ray, nice to see you. If you don't know who Alkanafter is, he's a Russian dude. He's had an interesting setup. So, just to give you like a quick TLDW or whatever, because we could do like a whole like 5 hours on this dude. Alkanafter was very much around in the early days of YouTube and War Thunder, and he was one of the biggest Russian or that region kind of YouTubers who would cover the game. He signed or tried to get a contract with Gaijin to be able to like make content and do all of this stuff, like, you know, to basically not have like exclusive rights, but have like an actual partnership. So instead of what you have now, which is kind of like a laissez-faire setup, instead you would have a proper partnership and all of this. So this happened, supposedly, and it wasn't signed with Gaijin, but it was signed by one of the employees who was high up, a guy called Pavel. And what ended up happening, as always does, is something was posted that Pavel didn't like, and therefore, on behalf of Gaijin Entertainment, decided to copyright strike the video. So, this was basically the company seen as attacking the YouTuber. And whenever this happens, whenever this goes on, in terms of content or in terms of anything like that, of course, people rightfully get annoyed, right? Because big guy smashing on small guy. That's how it works. So what people did at Gaijin, including Anton and everything, is Pavel got fired. He got because what he did was against what the company was going to do, and also was just wrong. Like, let's be honest, it was just a wrong move. So yeah, that's basically what ended up happening, and because of that whole like setup, it meant that there was a bit of a problem in terms of the whole thing. So after that, what happened is Alkanafter continued to make War Thunder content. He ended up pissing off a Russian state broadcaster, because he did like the classic kind of like War Thunder pipeline, where you start making like War Thunder videos, and then you go into like history videos, and then you go into like niche weird history, and then after that, when you run out of that content, you just start making stuff up. You know, that's that's kind of like a content pipeline that you see quite a lot on YouTube. So he started doing that, but idiotically, he started using some footage from a state media broadcaster, which was from Russia. So they copyright striked his channel and nuked it. So then, after that, he pivoted to streaming for a little bit and trying to create another channel. And then after that, when he wasn't living in Russia, he was living in another place, I think it was Lithuania, he started covering the invasion of Ukraine. And the country that he was in, obviously I had laws against promoting the invasion of Ukraine. He was live streaming and going through it and doing the standard stuff, so he ended up getting arrested. And then, after he got arrested, he eventually got deported back to Russia, where he now is, and I don't even know if he makes content or not. So, yeah, a little bit all over the place is probably the way to put that. So that is like kind of the whole story of that. So because of that, Gaijin like makes sure to not really have any control over anything and give like CCs free reign, right? And as I've said, I actually kind of disagree with that. I think sometimes they should step in and be like, look, like you, like even if they do like interviews or something with it, it's like, look, do you not see all this stuff we're doing, which is not what you're saying, right? But it kind of is how it goes. Thank you for the raid, Alex. That's very kind of you. Hey, Monet, nice to see you. He right now works for Russian propaganda, so he's not a good guy anyways. Oh, yeah, I know. He's not a good person. Like, it's just how it goes. But like, as I said, that's part of the story. So because of things like that, and also because of what companies have done in the past, they give like a lot of leeway to these things. And as I said, I think it's actually been negative in certain aspects, like last year and also other things. But yeah, it's just kind of how it goes. Always a fun time, that one. So then we have Jake the Tank Master. Howdy, Texter. Hello, Tank Master. Texter, I like that. Best biscuit to have with tea. Personally, I'm a fan of the Humble Digestive. McVitie's hobnobs are very good, but with tea, they are a little bit crumbly. Standard tea cake biscuits are always good. You know, okay, so I don't know how many of you know this, but I drink Yorkshire tea. Surprisingly, it's still available over here. So, and I don't mean like because it's out of business. I just mean because I'm in a different country. But yeah, I'm able to get a good supply of standard Yorkshire tea. Now, Yorkshire tea decided to make what can only be classed as a horrific mistake. They made a biscuit tea. So the idea of this tea was it tasted like standard tea, but if you dunked a biscuit in it, right? And it tasted foul. I don't know who had the idea, but they were wrong. Okay, they were not of sound mind, and it was not good for the population. So that was horrific. But a standard McVitie's digestive goes very far in this house. Generally, I don't dunk stuff in tea though. I usually just have a little bit of milk and then that's it. But yeah, if we're gonna do it, it'll just be a standard digestive. It's the best? What, the biscuit tea? It definitely isn't, Sneaky. Standard Yorkshire tea is fantastic. It's easily the best tea out of there. All other teas just pale in comparison of Yorkshire tea, but that's like anything that has the name Yorkshire on it, right? As we've talked about in the past, Yorkshire is just the best at everything. You know, biggest county, beautiful vegetation, very interesting people, great culture, great history. You know, you can't beat it. And if you don't believe me, there's a wonderful sketch about Yorkshire Airways on YouTube that you should watch. And it basically paints the perfect picture of what Yorkshire is. Yeah, Yorkshire pudding. Yorkshire pudding's also fantastic. Hey, Den, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. But yeah, so basically, yeah, just a standard digestive. One thing that I do also enjoy getting over here in terms of like biscuits and stuff like that is bourbons, because bourbons are really hard to find here. No idea why, but yeah, bourbons are just not the standard kind of thing that you see. So I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very happy to eat a bourbon. Like I think that's well up there with some of the best. Hey Timmy, nice to see you. Merry Christmas. Hopefully you're doing good. All right. You unlocked the F111A. It says it's fast, but I broke my wings at 1,000. What's the problem? At only 5 250s at the moment. Are you using the variable swept wings? You need to use the variable swept wings, otherwise it'll just rip apart. Like if you put them like fully back, it should be able to go faster than that. Then we see C-76 Caravan. Do you see the massive increase in squadron vehicles over the past months as an attempt by Guardian to drastically increase the amount of squad RP required? To have such a large RP requirement for all vehicles, that with the RP cap per 3 days, it becomes way more difficult to unlock most or if not all squadron vehicles in a reasonable time, thereby pushing people to start using G to unlock them. I think it's definitely a factor, because when you think about it, right, it isn't just the fact, you know, they're quite expensive. It's the fact they never go down in sales. So I don't know why this is the case, but squadron vehicles are exempt from sales. So they never reduce in cost. I don't know why that is. I think it's more like they added what, like 10 squadron vehicles or 8 squadron vehicles the last like 3 updates. I think it's more the fact that we had huge periods of time in War Thunder where there was just nothing to research with squadron vehicles. So I think now they're making a desired effort to just make sure there's always squadron vehicles to research. And if you remember, one of the things that they were doing in the roadmap, which they haven't implemented yet, hey Chicken Nugget, nice to see you, was they were going to implement a new kind of way to search for squadrons and also find the ones that you're in. So they're obviously going to improve the squad mechanics or squadron mechanics in War Thunder, and that might be something that they focus a lot on next year. There might also be the World War Mode stuff, which is obviously squadron based. You have the squadron battles. Maybe they'll start revamping that stuff. To bring in something for squadron vehicles, whether it's a way of getting more RP for them, whether it's a way of getting less RP, whatever it is. They're obviously working on something with that. But I think mainly it's just so people have something to grind. Because for me, there's been massive periods of time where I've just been like, where are the squadron vehicles? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And it turns out I was just wasting away in Squadron RP. This had a negative effect on the Squadron because people just either left the Squadron or stopped playing because there was no point in them being in it because there wasn't any World War Mode. We weren't doing Squadron battles. There wasn't the Squadron vehicles because everyone had the more research. So there was just like a myriad of things where I was like, well, what's the point kind of thing? But now we're back on track and now everything's going because of the fact that they have the squadron vehicles there and also the promise of World War Mode next year, at least in the leaked setup, right? So I feel like in general it's just filling the gap, right? Because the puddle was there for a long time and they've just overcorrected, and then we'll have to see in the new year if any of these things are going to change. Because one of the most important things for a game's longevity is cooperation, okay? And getting people involved in clans, getting people involved in squadrons, and getting people involved in all of that type of thing. And if you don't believe me, you can have a look at some MMOs that even are still around in the 90s, from the 90s, sorry, because of clans of like 50 to 100 people who still play them together as like a camaraderie thing. One thing that War Thunder really struggles with is that camaraderie element. We've talked about it previously with how the game is set up. It is set up as it's a team game built with solo actions. So your actions in the game obviously lead your team to victory, but at the same time, it is something which is more designed around, the individual player and what they do in the game. So there isn't a lot of squad-based stuff, which is why World War Mode was quite important to get right, and unfortunately they didn't. Why Squadron battles as well is something that people focus on, but also, once again, is something that hasn't really gone anywhere in a long time. They even removed Squadron battles, right, from, certain areas, such as arcades. So even there, you had like a similar issue in terms of what was all set up. So for me, when I look at all of these things, I see that they're front loading with a bunch of squadron vehicles, so therefore in the next few months they can then hammer down with a new system or hammer down with something else, which will make it easier to kind of grind through these things. Now, I might be completely wrong, right? I have been wrong in the past with these things. It is something that can be a little bit all over the place, but that's what it feels like, right? That's what it feels like setting up. What are those World Wars? So World War Mode is a seasonal-based event where squadrons fight squadrons in historical operations. So basically, you have like a huge like hexagonal map where you can move units around, and you can also, when you make battles to fight, your squad goes in to fight those battles. And also at the same time, eventually, if you win enough battles or if you maneuver correctly on the map, which, there's a commander maneuvering everything, then you win the operation. And there was like a leaderboard, there was like stuff you could get out of it, like vehicles, decals, decorations. It was actually a really cool thing. If you look on my YouTube channel, you'll find one of the videos of me like commanding one, just to kind of show people like, what you used to do in it. But at the same time, it had a fundamental problem. And that problem was, there was a lot of fundamental problems. One of the main ones was it was actually advantageous of you to not fight in battles and instead just win on the map. So yeah, it's a bit crazy. But we'll see what they do next year with it. Hopefully they do something with it, but who knows? Anything is possible. So let's see. We have Stig Fries. The F4E is my favorite plane to play still. However, I got it when it came out, so I forgot about the research. Yeah, I think in the tech talk we talked about how expensive it was to grind out the F4E, right? Because of the fact that it's like 280,000 RP to get all the modifications. Now, if you have a look, or maybe even 300,000, but if you look at like top vehicles at 14.0, it's like 320k RP. So it basically takes the same amount of time to grind out these things. And it's nuts. Like they really need to do something about it. There's a bunch of other things that like other vehicles I've been playing that have that issue. F104J, I spaded out the Nesha, and then also stuff like the J35D that I'm researching spading right now, which I got to be honest is not really the greatest of time. Like it's it's an interesting one, that one. But now I've got the engine, it's a little bit better. But they all have crazy high RP costs on their modifications, compared to like their actual usability in the game, which is quite shallow. So it just makes the experience not great. At least with the F4E. So the F4E, you do get countermeasures. That AIM-7E2, if you can get that to work, man, that is a very powerful missile. That's a great little semi-active dogfighting missile. I was able to catch a lot of people out with that, which was grand. The letdown is the additional missiles. Like I don't think the J's are very good. I'm a J hater. I much prefer a G. I'm not a G hater. Definitely just a J hater. But hopefully we can see more. I kind of want to play the Kurnas because the Kurnas has like all of the things, but it just has D's and G's, which are just fundamentally easier and better missiles to use. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, I think in general, the F4E grind, like we did well eventually, but as I said, it didn't feel good because you're facing a lot of things which are spaded out, because most of the things you face are premiums, and you have to grind so much modification RP on those things. They really need to think about reducing them. They just take way too long to get through. It also didn't work and got delayed multiple times. Yeah, that was also an issue with World War Mode. It just they just got a lot of it wrong. I still remember the data mines with World War Mode, and I remember Chabby like writing a line in which was like, I don't think they've understand what they've done with this server, but they are doxing them, not doxing themselves. What's the thing where you overload a server? Or you overload like a connection, so therefore you break it. Like an internet connection. Like you fire so many different things at it to basically make it so the server can't respond and it shuts down. DDoS, yeah. I remember one of his data mines, and it basically said, yeah, it seems like looking at what they're doing with this, they screwed up this number, so it's the server's DDoSing itself. And it was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. So that, I remember that was with like season 3, right? Or season 2 maybe, or season 1. But yeah, they had to keep delaying it. One of the big issues was they would bring a change log out for the World War mode after the World War mode had started for that week, or even like just before World War mode had started that week. So you would have like come up with a bunch of like preparation stuff. You would have like thought about what you want to do, and then the moment it starts, the balance fixes coming and completely change what you were even thinking about doing. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff wrong. And they did fix a lot of it by season 3, but they just kept adding mechanics which made it worse. So, not great. So we have Jerry. Let's see what Jerry says. I think the people who ask for larger maps for top tier ground forget the tanks start out stock. If Gaijin does add more larger maps, though, they make it a toggle to play larger versions of the map we already have in game, like what Sim has. Whoop. Let's just do this. Oh, missed. Also, when I know the Rafale was pronounced Rafale, but I'm just a chill guy, so I'll let you pronounce how you want. Oh, I know. Right. I know how you're supposed to say the Rafale, right? Like, it's one of the things, like, I don't know, I piss about with probably a little bit too much with pronunciation, but I get kind of bored. So I like throw in ones which are different, basically on purpose, because I'm so sick of people telling me how to like pronounce stuff. Like the weird one for me, right, is so as somebody who's from England, right, the broadness of different accents that you hear, even when growing up, is nuts. Like, I lived in a place called Hull. I don't sound anything like a person who's from Hull, right? And that's because I've had to change my accent so people could understand what I'm saying. I also don't sound like a person from the middle of Yorkshire. I don't sound like a person from Leeds. I don't sound like a person from Manchester. I don't sound like a person from Sheffield or Halifax or Bradford. And all of these places all have their own accents. And they're all like 2 hours away from each other in like a circle. And that's just one county, right? So the whole idea of like pronunciations, or the whole idea of like what things should sound like, is wild to me. And it's weird that certain languages, especially European ones, which, you know, less and less people are using nowadays in international, you know, speech, they get really pissy about like how you say specific things, even though it's impossible to say it correctly. So they get very pissy about the fact that you're not saying it exactly how they say it, even though what they say could be completely different to what somebody says, you know, a few hours away or even a few years away. So it's just a bit wild, like when you think about it in that way. So sometimes I just take the piss. It's probably the best way of putting it, because it's an unwinnable battle, and when I run into unwinnable battles, the way to engage is to not play and have a bit of fun, because that's the only way you'll ever come out of it like smiling and enjoying yourself instead of just feeling like crap. Because the moment that you try and please one person who's doing that, you screw yourself over when it comes to the next one. So yeah, there's just no winning. There's only power dynamics and not giving in to any of them. It's the only way to do it, really. And if you decide to pledge fealty to one set of people, they'll just ram themselves down your throat over and over and over again. So it's better just to not play. It's easily the way. You think people on console ever get access to the Gaijin market, since we get coupons as well? I think if it was up to Gaijin, they would love consoles to have access to the Gaijin market. I know I've seen and heard a lot of Gaijin guys basically talking about it, and the reason why they don't is because of the simple fact that is because of, you know, it's a third-party system, right? Like, the Gaijin market on PC is 100% controlled by Gaijin. Whereas if they brought something like that over to console, or maybe even integrated it, Sony and Microsoft would want their hands in it. They'd want percentages and they'd want control. And that is something that's untenable for a independent system. So even though Gaijin would want it, the issue is you're not just dealing with a one company setting it up. You're dealing with several companies, and then everything gets confusing, and everybody wants a piece of the pie, and yeah, it could lead to a bunch of other stuff when it comes to rules, laws, and all that stuff. So I would love it to happen. I'm sure Gaijin would also love it to happen. I'm sure they've even had discussions about it with the relevant parties, but obviously the terms are just not good enough. I remember there was a story a few years ago where there was a similar system in another game, and I think with Sony, which had set it up, and basically Sony wanted a percentage of the total revenue and also full control on what went on the market, and basically a yes or no setup on that. So they didn't just want a percentage of what the console part was, they wanted a percentage of everything, and also they wanted to say yes or no to anything that would be implemented, which is wild. But the Crossout game as an in-game market that functions kind of like the market for War Thunder, it's not the same at all, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it is very different, which is why it's not the same and not replicated. But yeah. The other part of this, so yeah, they could just do what they did with like air and other things, and also ground night battles. They could just add an option to be like, hey, if you want to play on larger maps, click this, right? The nice thing about that option, at least for me, is it gives people the opportunity, if they want to be in the minority, which they are, they can still enjoy stuff from the minority point of view without bothering everybody else. One of the nice things about, you know, the small maps for aviation and also the night battle stuff is now people have the opportunity to at least get them, but it doesn't bother everybody else, which don't want to see them, right? So it's a very positive thing that Gaijin did, and I'm kind of surprised they did it, because I thought it would just be a never-ending thing. But all of those types of ideas have kind of just disappeared, right? Like, because of this system. Like, the only thing I hear about now is I have the option clicked, but I don't see anybody. I don't get these games, and I can just turn around and go, well, it's there, isn't it? So, you know, if you're not seeing it, that's because a bunch of other people don't want to see it. So, like, what can you do? And I think it's super positive that they've actually done that. I'm really happy that is, you know, what they've focused on. It's great. It's actually really, really good from my point of view. It's fantastic. Good evening, Penguin Red. Nice to see you. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to Shia. You doing good? Hopefully you have a good set of days. Merry Christmas to you. But yeah, I mean, I would be fine if they added something like that in. Like it would be completely fine. I wouldn't be mad in any way if they added that option, as long as they removed them from the total pool. But yeah, a lot of the playing stock on a large map is a death sentence. But most people who ask for these things don't think about consequences. They're more bothered about the historical side of things, which also makes absolutely no sense. But we'll get into that another time. But the idea that you want like the people's vision of what a realistic tank battle looks like is just completely wrong compared to what it actually looks like, especially in the modern day. Like, if you've been paying attention to what's been going on in Ukraine and also other areas of the world which are also in open conflicts, like, it isn't the fairy tale way that, you know, War Thunder shows it, but it's also not the way that other people describe it and how they want to see it in War Thunder. It's very, very different. Merry Christmas, Titan. Hopefully you have a good one. I'm well, getting the mom. IL moved to town. Wifey is chuffed, as they say. Oh, well, that's good. Fantastic to hear. Yeah, we're all set up for Christmas stuff. Everything's ready to go, so I am feeling very good. Hopefully you're doing too. So then we have Charlie. Let's see what Charlie says. Hi, Tech. Hello. So with submarines coming in War Thunder soon in 2025, I think the most advanced type of German U-boat would be the Type 21, since that would be the most advanced German U-boat in War Thunder Naval, since it has a massive bank of batteries and could also recharge its batteries while underwater by the use of a snorkel. Plus, it would also manage a speed of up to either 28 or 25 knots submerged, if memory serves me right. With Gaijin pretty much saying that the more novelty vehicles like the F-117, do you think this will allow some beginner bombers like the B-47 and the Russian-Chinese Tu-16? Since I think those would be pretty solid starter bombers. They can defend themselves quite easily, and they could pack quite an impressive payload of bombs. I think you could get those in the game anyway, if they wanted to add them, right? I think it's just... it's the problem with those has just always been the balancing of them. The F-117 is never going to be good, right? You would have to put it at, like, I don't even know, like what BR would you have to put the F-117 at for it to be good? Like maybe 6057, right? Man, no, even lower than that, because it's no, yeah, let's say around like 6.0, right? And by good, I mean actually fit. In terms of like its predominant thing, which is go high, guided bomb, disappear, right? So you would have to do that. Now the problem with this is the simple fact that that's not ever going to happen. And with these kind of larger bombers with huge payloads, the problem is they could easily take over games from a perspective of like the amount of bombs that they have. The thing about the F-117 is crazy limited in terms of armament, right? In terms of armament, it's useless, right? From what it brings. These bombers aren't. They're insanely largely armed. So if they're left alone, they just win a match by themselves. And that's the problem, right? That's the issue with a vehicle like that. So even though the F-117 is in, and it is a novelty, that doesn't mean those follow the same area. They would have to drastically limit the armaments on them, and then you know exactly what would happen. People would constantly complain about the fact they do not have their correct armaments, and they should have them, and then eventually somebody engaging will be like, okay, well, let's try it, and then because they seem to have a policy where they never remove anything in terms of ordnance, then they're never going to be able to be balanced. So yeah, that's the problem right there. It's just amount of ordnance. So they'd have to do something about, fixing that. When it comes to the naval side of things, yeah, the major thing for me about submarines is the interactivity of them. So when they did that naval event in War Thunder, was it the Battle of the Atlantic? It was incredibly uninteractive. So both sides didn't really interact with each other. What you had was the frigates going in, battering down the doors of the submarines, and then if they died, they got in a plane and then battered down the doors of the submarine. And then it was all about the submarines trying to survive, to get close to the convoy to fire their torpedoes. And even if you were fully submerged, the frigates knew where you were, right? That's pretty much how like the whole thing got set up. It was incredibly uninteractive because the frigates were incredibly strong, the submarines were not, and it was more they had to survive to get close to the convoy. That type of gameplay has never worked very well in War Thunder, and never will. Because people find the exploits on finding the people who are trying to hide, and they annihilate them. And one of the exploits in that event was the fact that even if something was as low as possible under the water, you could see it with a plane. And with the third-person view, it was very easy to see, so you could just keep popping people over and over again. Now, that is going to be kind of the key part of how they fit it in War Thunder Naval. The speed thing is an issue, definitely an issue. Length of the torpedoes is also kind of an issue, but the major problem is the fact that it's fully uninteractive. If a submarine spawns on one side of the map, and you spawn on another, on most of the maps, what do you do to it? It can just submerge, and it can wander around, fire off its torpedoes, reload, do the same thing over and over again, and just keep doing it, right? That's very uninteractive. It's very similar to the shimmy, the shimikaze. The shimikaze is really strong, especially on some maps, which are just like, gunpoint shooty at each other. The shimmy can just lay out layers of torpedoes and never get shot. If you play it correctly. It can end up with 10, 14, 15, 20 kills. It's very strong as a vehicle in arcade. The submarines could be exactly the same, and there's nothing you can do about it, but they could also be completely worthless because of the distance they have to engage on. So, there's a lot of things that would have to be looked at in terms of this, and I don't know where I sit in terms of how it's all going to play out. I'm interested to see how they do it. I'm interested to see how they implement it, but I'm just not sure how they're going to do it, right? Now, luckily, there are people who get paid to work out how to do this, and I can just sit here and just be confused. And that, that's good. So we'll have to see how it goes. Then we have Ulfred Tierson. Let's see what Ulfred says. Hey Tech, what's your favorite end of the line ground vehicle, and what's your favorite Tech Tree first beginning jet? Favorite Tech Tree first beginning jet is the Meteor. I think the Meteor is fantastic. It's one of those which works fantastically well. The reason why it works fantastically well is because of the fact that it's a good mixture between how you fly propeller aircraft and how you fly jets. So it has good speed, it has a really good elevator, really nice and maneuverable, and also nice guns. So that is like huge for a vehicle like that. So that is the most important thing to me in terms of, a vehicle. So I think that is really good. I'm a huge fan of the Meteor for that, and I think it's the perfect vehicle to kind of step between the ranks. So that's what I would go for. For end of the line, was it ground vehicle? Ground vehicle. I mean, I really like the light tanks. Like, I really enjoyed the Puma VJTF. I thought that was like super fun. I think that was really nice. My favorite in terms of MBT to play is the STRV 122s. And that's just because they're just Leopards, but with slightly more survivability. So it just makes them a little bit easier to play. But when I played the 2A7, I felt like a god. Like, with the Sporeliner, with so many of the things, it was just insane. The amount of power I felt with that vehicle in terms of what I was facing. So I would say, that vehicle was really nice. I also really enjoy the Black Knight, because the Black Knight actually has the APS, so it's one of the only vehicles that can actually defend itself against like CAS coming in, which is an MBT. And that is, quite nice, even though it's a little bit slower, even though it has, a few issues on the other areas. That to me was really cool, and it made me feel a lot safer, especially as a second spawn. And usually as a second spawn in naval, you have a really rough time. Like, you are going to struggle when it comes to these things. So yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that it had that, and it's something that I hope they start doing more of in the coming period of time, like just adding more of these mechanics which are more designed around survivability instead of lethality, because we have many lethality mechanics now, but yeah, we just need a few more kind of, okay, it's time to live, time to exist, Spoiler on the T90M almost does nothing. Yeah, but it's also a super cramped vehicle, right? The thing about like the Leopard 2A7 and other vehicles like that with spoiliners, they're pretty big. So by nullifying the the spread of the APF SDS, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, it's one of those that it's definitely way more useful on things like that. So yeah, it's quite nice. Right, so then we have Not Sion. I've stopped playing the battle passes completely. I thought the HE-177 looks great, but like I don't need it, and the missiles are meh at best, unless they change the way that they're controlled. I agree with the guy at 2015, more mid-tier vehicles like Korean War planes and a heavily changed battle pass would get me reinvigorated. I don't think the battle pass needs to change. I think the general like setup of it is fine. But I do agree they need to. I mean, we've talked about improvements to the battle pass in the past, so things that they could definitely add to get people a bit more excited about it. Whether it is like bringing older vehicles back, not in loot boxes, whether it's like adding modifications to the vehicles, like being able to kind of grind out like a box for that, whether it's not wages, whether SL talismans could also be something that you add in, you know, to vehicles, more old camouflages, more old decals, like a lot of the weekly decals, they could easily bring those back in these like kind of things. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff that they could do to reinvigorate them, but it has nothing to do with the vehicles, right? With the vehicles, they need to start thinking about, you know, actually having some unique ones or having some kind of banger in them, because now we're down to 2 vehicles, and you get, so this one, the Murmansk, is just a copy of a machine we already have, and then you have the whatever it's called, the Grief, which is just the Grief with the missile, right? There's no other change, there's no other difference. So if you already have the Grief, you get a missile. Okay, sure. Oh, I suppose it's premium as well, but okay, whatever. Like it doesn't really matter in terms of the game. Doesn't really do anything. Isn't really that interesting. So I do feel like they just need, even if one of the vehicles, or if they bring back another vehicle, even if 2 of the vehicles are just kind of like copies, you need something that is interesting in it. And that just wasn't it with this update. Hopefully with future updates to the Battle Pass, they can bring some more in. We're actually going to do kind of like the Battle Passes in review of the year, and then we're going to go through them, you know. Hey Pepino, nice to see you. Merry Christmas. Hopefully you have a good one, man. Hopefully everything goes. Change the box back to what it was, or increase the amount of SL you get in it if you have all the vehicles in said box. Yeah, the amount that you get if you have the vehicles is so ludicrously bad. But also we have seen a few things that they might do in the future in terms of the Battle Pass, like with the profile stuff coming in. They could add some stuff from the profiles to the Battle Pass, right? Like the profile icons or the profile borders or stuff like that, you know, things that have been data mined. They could easily do stuff like that, and that would be actually really cool to see. So yeah, I'm hoping that we do get things like that. I really am, because I think it would be super positive for the game if they find new avenues of customization. We've talked about avatar stuff in the past. You know, it's all well and good like getting a title in the game for these battle passes, but it doesn't really do much, right? It can't really show anything off, especially with the new profile and the way that they've set it up. So I hope in the future that's something they focus on, you know, the customization angle, and the battle pass can easily be a great place for that. And so yeah, the battle pass being, as I said, we're gonna have a look at the battle passes from this year. They've been very weak. Like if you compare them to previous years, they've taken a huge step down. Like it's not even a competition how much value they've lost. Like I don't think there's a system in War Thunder that has lost as much value as the battle passes have. It's really, really, so we'll have to see, won't we? Let me just get off this salvo and we'll have a look at the next thing. Then we have Stefan Enchev. Hi Tech, hello. I watched all the tech talks and this is the first one I'm commenting on. Anyway, I feel that a vehicle that has only one version in the game would be fine to copy paste to the nations, because it wouldn't be as boring to play, because there would only be 2 versions in the game. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's true. My example for this would be the Hetzer, because you could add it to a nation that would get Bulgaria in the Hetzer. I personally would like the Bulgarian Hetzer to go to Russia, because it would be fine giving Russia another 4-3 tech tree TD. What do you think? Thank you for reading this. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fine if Russia got more TDs in that area. They're generally pretty stacked for TDs, though. The one that I'm interested in the most for the Hetzer is the Swiss stuff. But the problem with that is they'll probably add the Swiss stuff to Germany again, right? So you basically just get the same thing again. But yeah, it would be cool to see vehicles like that kind of spread around. Bulgaria also has a bunch of other weird and wonderful kind of modifications of things. So that would also be pretty fun to see. I generally have a kind of rule against, well, not a rule, but you know what I mean. Like I generally have, I feel like with certain nations, they shouldn't really get subtech trees because they already have a ton of stuff in the game. And Russia is one of those countries, right? The only reason why I'm generally okay with like Germany getting the Swiss air stuff is because of the fact that they really struggle in that period of time. And if you look at what they had access to while the Soviet Union was collapsing, and also while America was basically protecting the skies instead of Germany protecting the skies, they really struggle in terms of the vehicles there. But I feel like, therefore, they need it kind of filled. But when it comes to Russia and America and many others like that, I don't think it's positive to give them subtech trees. So I'd rather it went somewhere else, like, you know, maybe somewhere like Italy or another nation in the game. Or maybe if they decide to add another one in, that could work. But yeah, the less copy-paste, the better. But I understand that copy-paste is one of those things which is fundamental in the game. It has to be, at the end of the day. It has to be something because of how many nations used, you know, the same stuff. Hey, Teddy, nice to see you. And that's okay, but they just need to think about mechanics of making them a little bit more appealing to play. Otherwise, everything will just become the same. And that is not very fun. For the amounts of people who are playing it. So yeah, hopefully they can work that out. Hopefully they can figure out how to do it effectively and also make it a little bit more fun. We'll see. Hey, Papa Stalin, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything's okay. Nice to see you, War Thunder Addict. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything's okay. So we have Ether Doctor. High Tech was thinking of grounding out America, but it looks so boring. Right, let's see. I've researched Japan and Italy and Britain a lot. Should get away. Whoa. The other reasons is the teams. From my experience, they and the Germans are the same skill. The only difference is that German players at least bring out their tanks. Americans teams mostly leave after one death from 8.0. I mean, fair, but you're never going to be able to control what your teams do. So you just have to focus on what you find fun and what you want to enjoy. So I wouldn't worry about the team aspect stuff, especially in terms of War Thunder, because it can change within an update, right? Like, everything can just be completely different because of the fact that, you know, a nation has a certain vehicle, so therefore players move around it. Hey, Nurgle, nice to see you. Merry Christmas, man. So yeah, that's something that I don't usually think too much about, because it can just be a timing thing, if that makes sense. So for me, what I would say, if you are interested in swapping out tech trees, obviously getting everything up to rank 3 in each of the tech trees would be a start, and then just focus on dailies. Like, just focus on completing whatever dailies work for whatever nation, and then specials, and then just go from there. So you don't worry about like how boring the vehicles are or how monotonous like playing the same stuff is over and over again. You can just focus on the dailies and it'll be a little bit easier. And then by the time like you go to the next, by the time you finish the dailies and then the specials, you have already grinded like a decent amount to the next vehicle, right? Which is basically what you want to do anyway. So yeah, it for me is, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would worry about getting stuck in tech trees at very high levels. If you're already up at 8.0, you're kind of pretty committed to it, right? And not finding the enjoyment of it. So instead of just focusing on one nation, just why not focus on multiple at the same time and just kind of grind them and get stuff done alongside them. That's how I've always, gone for the game, and it works best. Yeah, something like China, something like Sweden also could be, fantastic as well. That could definitely work as well. That's just kind of how it goes. So we have Maxwell. Tech, if you're not feeling well, don't make the videos. I don't think you will lose something if you take a week break from YouTube or something like that. Of course, it'd be cool if you had more energy in the video, but you don't seem to be having a good time, so why do it? It was more of just the fact that that week was incredibly busy from work points of view, and I also felt bad because of the fact that the last update for War Thunder had happened, and it was frustrating me to a point where I couldn't get things to work at the time, and I was very much low on sleep. The problem is, right, is think about a job, or think about school, or think about like personal life. Certain standards have to be met, and they have to be like personal standards, right? So if you are not feeling good about work, you still have to go to work. You still have to do it. You still have to make money. You still have to do all of these things, right? To be able to live your life. For me, I take that mentality and I expand it out. So if I'm not, there are certain times where I feel like I have to get this thing done or I have to sort it out, because if I don't and I leave it to kind of sit there and nothing happens with it, then I will be stuck in a situation in a week's time where I'm doing all of the stuff from that week, and then also I have to do all the other stuff from the week too, right? Because of how ordered everything is for me. So if I don't do things now, I'm going to be screwed in the future if I haven't done those things there, right? Like that is just the simple truth. And this happens in, you know, everybody's life to a point. If you don't get stuff done today, then you won't be able to do stuff tomorrow because you'll be stuck on the stuff today and then you get behind. And YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff is the most malleable part of my life, but I still run into that issue with it because of that fact, right? Because of how all of that stuff is set up. And it's just how it goes. It's just the standards that I hold myself to in terms of this. Like, we've talked about it before with, like, YouTube stuff or with, like, online content stuff. If anything, like, in terms of how it's all set up, it works very well, but it would make much more sense for me to actually go and do something else if monetary gain was, like, the thing I focused on. But because this is something that I have a passion for, and because at the same time it is something that I gain a lot of enjoyment from, if what happens is I'm kind of like sat there and I don't get these things done, then I'm gonna just be behind and we're just gonna go around in a circle, and that's just not gonna be good. That's never gonna work, right? So yeah, that's pretty much why. If I never want to be in that mindset where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do any of this anymore. If I'm in that mindset, I'm not gonna do it. But if I've had like a rough night's sleep, or if I've had to focus on other things and get them done first, and then this turns up, I'm still gonna do it. Because if I don't, I'll have to do it later on. And because of everything being like it is, with the way my life is, with my work stuff, my personal life, and this life, it is all like stacked on top of each other in an incredibly scheduled way. So if one piece breaks, the whole thing falls apart. And then my brain, because of how it's like set up, focuses on that piece that is broken apart. And that is something that I know other people don't think like. If you have that, most people in their lives, especially when they get to my age, have a bit more malleability in terms of like what they can do on a day, or, you know, days off or whatever it is. My brain doesn't allow me to do that. My brain is stuck in like a mode, and has been since I was about 14 or 15, of constant, I feel bad if I don't get things done. So therefore, if I do things, I feel good. and therefore I do things. And it's been stuck like that for many, many years. And there'll probably be a point where, like we've talked about it in the past, where my brain will eventually just go, you know what, we've done good. You know, bank accounts are nice, everything's set up, everything's good. Okay, you go chill, right? You go relax. But I'm nowhere near that point when it comes to my head. And that straight up just goes to everything in my life. It comes to like making the houses okay, making sure the missus is okay, making sure the animals are okay, everything. It's like running your head constantly at full gas. And I know a lot of people say it's very unhealthy and you need time to like switch off and do all of these things. But I don't think I would actually do well in that because I get stressed out when I don't get these things done and I do relax. My father, when I was younger, right? So my father, he has this issue where he'll like fall asleep and then he'll wake up like an hour later and he'll have something on his mind that he has to do. And if he doesn't do it, he won't get back to sleep. So he'll just sit up all night thinking about what to do. I do exactly the same thing as he does when it comes to this stuff. I don't know if it's like hardwired, if it's a genetic thing, whatever it is. It's just weird, right? And it's just odd. So when you have a mindset where you constantly have to complete whatever like the things you've set down on the table is, it is actually less beneficial of you to take a break from those things, because if I do that, my brain just goes, why aren't you doing that thing? Why aren't you sorting it out? Because let's say I don't feel good at that point and I decide not to do it, okay, that's fine. But then in a day when I have to do it again, I can't do it because there's another thing there to do. And then I get even more annoyed at myself that I didn't do the thing when I should have done the thing. So with War Thunder and with online stuff, I've actually streamlined it a lot more than I have done in the past. So I do less videos on YouTube now. I actually couple things more together and have found, for me personally, that's been a better thing to do because it just means everything's just a bit easier in terms of getting like the information in and thinking about it and moving it around. It's also meant in general it's easier to read through a lot of stuff. But at the same time, because I've done that and I've put that limit on myself that when it gets to a certain time of the day, we don't focus on that part and we focus on something else, it can lead to times during the day where I see something I want to like sort out and I can't sort out until the next day. And it sends my brain haywire. And I don't know how to stop it. And I don't know if I even want to stop it. Because I do get told a lot that I do. It isn't that I do too much stuff. It's more people just don't understand how I do all the stuff I do. Right? And they say it's weird and it's odd and don't you ever get tired? All of these general things, right? But if I don't do that, then I feel worse. I haven't found a way of balancing that. Because I've never had that kind of setup of, hey, you know, you need to go relax now. Because my relaxing is like working out. It's still doing something. I don't get any enjoyment out of just like sitting there watching TV. Like my missus watches like a lot of shows in the background while like doing things, or in the evening we'll watch like a movie. But if that movie is just like no good or just kind of boring and not worth my time, I'll just like start doing something else. Like it's just kind of how it is. But I've been this way since, as I said, like mid-teenager. And I don't think it'll ever change unless like a cog comes off the car and everything explodes. Or I feel like I'm happy with where I'm generally at. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. Hey, No Mercy, nice to see you. So yeah, that's pretty much why. Sometimes you have to get stuff done in stress, and sometimes you have to do stuff because you have to do other things in other places. And you have to sort it out. It's like exams, right? For like school. Nobody likes exams. And if you do, I don't know. I would class that as very odd behavior if people like the stress of exams. But you have a time limit where you have to get the exam done. You have a date when the exam is set. You have to turn up. You have to do okay, or you have to do well, or things start falling apart in other places, right? Now, for me, and when I look at that, I hear a lot about how people get stressed about that. For me, that's great because it's something I can focus on in terms of a goal. I have a time limit for it, and I know how to schedule around it. Now imagine that, but just everything, right? That's just how it goes. So yeah, I could just kind of sit down and not do anything and just chill, but that would actually increase my stress level because it's thinking about things I'm not doing instead of just doing the things. When I have days where I'm not able to stream, or I'm not able to do like YouTube stuff because I'm either doing like work stuff or I'm doing like personal stuff, I feel bad because of the fact I'm not living up to my own standards in what I'm doing. So yeah, it's a bit wild. Interesting brain, my brain. One day there'll be some fantastic books which written that may explain all of this random shit that goes on in it. Then we have Zigazagu. So early? Early indeed. This was, what, like 2 weeks ago? So, pretty crazy. I'm actually having fun in War Thunder for the past week or so. Me never leaves till I run out of SPAA. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're having a good time, man. That's fantastic to hear. So then we have the last comment. So we have Denisha Koju. Hi, Tech. Do you think War Thunder will ever add massive weaponry, like big glide bombs and missiles 20,000 pounds and above? Yes, I do. I mean, they've already added like ridiculously large things, right? Like I think we're what, 3,000 kilos, 12,000 pound bombs, you know, like, and that's over like the last year. They added the 3,000 kilo glide bomb, to the Su-34. So it's obviously something that's going to happen. It's just kind of a time thing. The only question I kind of have is the distance that they can be tossed at, right? Like that's the big problem with stuff like that. But no, I think they'll constantly add bigger and bigger things, and they'll constantly increase the amount of stuff that's about, because that's just what happens in War Thunder, right? It's constant evolution, and one of the easiest things in terms of evolution to do is to add things that already exist, but just either bigger or smaller versions. One of the things, after looking at a lot of the updates this year and kind of going through them, that I realized is a lot of the updates added so much stuff to older vehicles. Like crazy amounts of things. Like there was so many things where they just added a ton of like bombs to something, or a ton of like weapons to something, which didn't have them previously. So there was so many like little incendiary bombs, rockets, standard bombs, AP bombs, drag bombs, you know, all of these things that were just kind of nuts. So I think that's what we'll see coming forward. We'll see more custom weaponry stuff, we'll see more updated DMs, and then also just more bombs once the models are done. Because all the core mechanics are there now. I don't think there's a weapon system in the world that isn't modeled in War Thunder in how it works, or would not have the opportunity to be modeled in War Thunder to how it works. I think what Gaijin is going to struggle with right now is adding these things in realistically, and also keeping people happy, because there'll be some things they won't be able to add in at all realistically. And that's something we've seen with the Brimstone, right? Where they added in the Brimstone as this kind of like big banger, obviously to test it before the Eurofighters came in, you know, on the Tornado, but they didn't add it in how it works in real life. Or not, sorry, they didn't add it in with all of the modes that it has in real life. So obviously people get annoyed at that. So that's going to be like the big thing. That's going to be the big question on how they do it. And I think they'll be fine with it. I don't envisage like anything going wrong with it. I think they'll generally just keep adding stuff over and over again. There's no reason why they can't. There's nothing that's like stuck in terms of the game. I think this year they've, in terms of like mechanics and stuff like that, they've added a lot of stuff to air, and in ground they've just kind of manipulated a lot of them that are around. I thought we would see more APS stuff this year, if I'm honest, but yeah, c'est la vie. We'll see what goes on in the future. Oh dear, this is not good. So that's the end of the questions for the Tech Talk, or the comments, I should say, on it. I don't think there's too much else to go through. Ooh, just missed. But yeah, since this is going to be one of the last, if not the last, Tech Talk for the year, I did just want to say I've really enjoyed doing this series. I think the way that we've sorted it out is much better than it was previously. We'll see how it goes in the new year, just because of funny, just because of, you know, changing of plans in January in terms of doing the streaming stuff, and also to do with other things. We filled all the goals that wanted to do in the next year, and hopefully we can do some more stuff. But it's been fun. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. I hope you all have a good New Year. Hopefully everything works well, unlike this naval server. And and I hope you have a good time. Peace be with you as always. Bye bye.